the American Constitutional Republic, affairs of state in Oklahoma, the beliefs, principles, opinions, and views of people like you. This is 3D Politics. Featuring creator and editor of Sooner Politics, expert on Oklahoma state government, David Van. Also joining us as usual, founder and scholar of Constitutional Grounds, political leader, educational speaker, David Oldham. And never forget your fine verbal Viking, your perspicuous pirate and plunderer of conversation, Tommy McKay, comedian, political humorist, father of 5, and former mayoral candidate. Wow. Here we are again. Tonight we've got an exciting show. Amazing. We're going to talk a little bit about Car Sale Sunday. I'm looking for somebody who's got the specializes in felony credit. Also, I want to mention something about Booker T. Washington tonight shortly because of having just read his book, Up From Slavery, and I want to chide the public school for that. I want to talk about missing context and a little JPEG I put together. We're also going to move into discussing some GOP party issues with Al Gerhart, our fine guest at the bottom of the hour. We're also going to talk about a hit piece done by the Frontier on John Bennett. I'm sure we'll have a COVID update from David, and we hope to talk some Constitution with Oldham. So, gentlemen, before we get started, anything exciting?
It's warmer.
It's warmer. Look how easy going I am now. Man, last week was chilly.
Even the piles that were, 12, almost 15 feet high have melted to manageable levels.
Right.
Maybe only a day or so we will be gone. All the snow will be gone. It'll be kind of nice. I miss it already. I like the white. I like the iced over water and all of that. I just like it.
I pop popcorn all. When you get older, you start loving the birds for some reason. I thought, oh my God, these birds are gonna die.
That's one thing that's really funny. Okay, so the family threw bird seed out on the back porch.
Right.
Front porch as well, but the birds like the back porch. They don't do the front porch for whatever reason. They threw it out, and then it got covered over with snow. Threw it out again, covered over with snow. Threw it out again, covered over with snow. I had no clue how much they were throwing out there. It's got to be, buckets and buckets of seed that's still left on the back porch.
So, Mike, yes, you get home tonight, you're going to see birds belly up, full of bloated bellies because they ate too much now.
They were doing pretty good. The ones that we liked that were just so much fun to watch were the fox sparrows. And it was something that's not, they're down a little further south than normal, obviously. Yeah. But they would hop forward and then scratch as they hopped back. Hop forward in the air, they would just hop forward and then scratch back, both legs at the same time. It was hilarious to watch them. But they were churning up the snow for all the other birds. It was great.
All our young viewers, one day you'll love the birds for some reason.
I never thought I'd meet a person who'd make bird watching sound interesting.
It was
that's kind of like a Pharrell dance, but
my favorite as a high school kid, I would go up to Canada canoeing in the wilderness lakes there and watching the loons. They are the most amazing duck you'll find because they'll go swimming underwater, and I'd try to paddle up close to them, and then they go underwater and come up on the other side of your canoe. Wow. They're the most amazing thing. So birds can be a lot of fun to watch. Yes.
Oh, God's creatures. Yes, there's a number of amazing versions of a bird. So here we go with Car Sale Sunday. Let's say you got the severed head of a lover in a paper bag and you need to get out of town. Well, if you've got $500 in 15 minutes, we'll have you out of town in half an hour. That's our felony credit special. Here you go. A bill would allow car dealerships to sell on Sundays. This is a story by Barbara Holbrook February 19th, 2021, Oklahoma City car dealerships will be able to sell vehicles on Sunday under a measure that advanced from a Senate panel on Friday. Senate Bill 693 by Senator Adam Pugh.
Yes.
He is Republican out of Edmond, would repeal the state prohibition that keeps auto dealers from Sunday sales. Pugh said the measure was was a constituent request from a small used car dealer in his district. Dave Rader said, he's a Republican out of Tulsa, said he has several used cars dealerships in his district, and none of them requested this bill. And listen to this quote. I love this. And you got to love Rader. This prohibition seems to be one sensible way we can slow down some things.
Oh, my God.
And let's say not sell cars. Let's just say that.
That's right.
That goes right.
Slow down everybody else who doesn't have to make a living. That's right.
Well, when you start loving the birds, you want things to slow down.
Oh!
So, and you know what? This goes right in line with G.T. Bynum's desire to limit sales activities by raising the sales tax this summer by 62.5% on the city sales tax. So that ought to slow some stuff down.
Yeah.
I just love that, though.
Just throw your extra money in your mask, and then everything will be okay.
Well, I have to say, as somebody, my wife was sick with a protracted illness, and there was one day I'm working, and I'm like almost like a single dad in that I'm having to take care of 3 kids, including a newborn. My wife had postpartum depression. It was very serious, and it went on for months. So on top of having to try to work for a living and provide for my family and care for my family, and a wife with very special needs and stuff, man, I remember having to get a new car because the cars broke down. And the only time I could arrange to get over and get this car was a Sunday. And he says, no, I can't do it on a Sunday. I said, oh, I'm sorry. And he says, no, I want to. He says, it's against state law.
Right.
So my family went without, my kids went without, and I'm having to hawk rides and everything because of this Sunday thing. So it's really, it can be a real problem here.
It's amazing that you have an anecdotal story that literally.
Well, and I've got another one because I talked to probably one of the most well-known car dealers in the state, Henry Primo. He's a client of mine, have been for 30 years. And Henry and Jane, I was talking to him one day about this law, and to Henry, he said, he says, for our family, we've been in car sales. It's a day of rest, and we like it. And we like the fact that we don't feel like we're falling behind the competition. And that's how he thinks of it. So I want to put that out there, that's their mindset.
There is.
This is the thing. There is no law prohibiting antique stores.
Yes.
From being closed on Sunday.
Exactly.
I mean, prohibiting them from being open on Sunday.
Or movie
not
theaters.
A single antique store.
Movie theaters,
falling behind,
amusement parks.
Exactly, and you know what, and or restaurants.
Yeah. Oh God, gotta keep them open. Where would the Baptists eat after Sunday service?
Exactly.
I don't want to feel like I got to lower my price to compete.
Does this mean Chick-fil-A is actually discriminating against all churchgoers because they're not open?
If I saw Chick-fil-A lobbying our legislature to make everybody else close, I'd quit eating at Chick-fil-A.
Well, hey,
that's a sacrifice for me, let me tell you.
Back to that licensing thing that Oldham always loves to bring up. I mean, this is what I mentioned with Chip Paul last week, was that you don't see consumers down there clamoring to shut off car sales on Sunday. It's other dealers arguing for ground and turf with other car dealers. Same problem with the marijuana industry. The big wigs in the marijuana industry want to shut the door and not have to compete with the smaller doors.
No, Tom,
and this is the problem with this.
Here's a very good illustration, and Frank Urbana could probably go on even further about this. You notice that these are industries that are licensed, and because they're licensed, they are not prosecuted in district court for violating these laws. They just lose their license. It's same thing with the bars that Frank Urbanik was trying to defend and the restaurants. Anybody has to get a food establishment license, and now the car dealers, they're afraid, and they're not going to get their day in court with the presumption of innocence. They're going to get an administrative hearing, and boom, they're gone.
I love
they can, just to be clear, they can push it to a judicial court, but, and here's the big thing, those judicial courts are automatically prejudiced to the licensing agencies.
Right.
So even though you can get out of an administrative court and into an actual Article 3 judicial venue, the problem is that they give prejudice to the
that's one of them, David,
and there's the problem.
That's one of them. Another one is you got to take the initiative rather than the burden of proof being on them.
Correct.
And then number 3, you probably have to hire an attorney in order to get all those things done.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because they've already basically tried to shut your doors.
Yeah.
And they've gone to court to claim that you are not following the rules and therefore need to have your doors shut. So they're following this as though you're an evil doer.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to record one of these conversations that I have with the people who sit on these licensing boards, because every single conversation I have goes the same way. Every person is evil, and they need to be rode to death because otherwise they get out of hand. You ought to see the people we deal with, and therefore all these prohibitions and everything like that are legit because these people would run wild without us. That is every single conversation I've ever had.
Help me with the constitutional tie-in here, Oldham.
Okay.
I've heard the High Court make reference to something called prior restraint. It means the government clamps down on everybody before anybody's done anything criminal.
Correct. It's usually used primarily in First Amendment cases, but yes.
Okay. But wouldn't this be a form of, by making somebody get a license, that's a type of prior restraint in that they have to prove that they're not criminal.
Correct. Now, mind you,
nice point.
This is the Supreme Court came up with the term prior restraint. It's nowhere found in the Constitution.
Right.
What you have is deprivation of liberty, life, liberty, or property, and that is found in the 5th, 4th, and 14th Amendments of the Constitution.
Yeah. It
is a denial of equal privileges and immunities because you're denying people their privileges and immunities.
There's a pretty sharp attorney. He's been a longtime friend of mine, my former Senator Don Rubottom, and I think you were part of a conversation we're having online where he said, these are laws of government convenience. By everybody making you fill out the forms, you make it easier for them to prosecute you. When they show up and say, your papers, please, if you don't have papers, you're already a criminal because you don't have papers.
Right.
I will never again underestimate our ability to take the simplest of stories and work a half hour. I want to add this before we have our soft break here. Adam Pugh, Senator Adam Pugh out of Edmond. I love this. And he actually, you're continuing to listen to the fine Verbal Viking, your host, Tommy McKay, here with David Vann and David Oldham on 3D Politics every Monday night right here on Facebook Live. And catch us, of course, out there on our website, 3dpoliticslive.com. And I want to say here that not only does Adam Pugh, put together the worst combination of example, but then he actually says for them to consider consistency, adding that no other business that has that prohibition. This is Pugh talking about the car sales prohibition, and we quote Pugh. He says, "We sell marijuana on Sundays. We sell alcohol on Sundays. The state should not prevent small business owners from selling cars on Sundays because larger dealerships don't like it." So I love this where he's like, we're going to have sell alcohol and weed and cars. Let's put them all together in a big sale.
That's right. Right there.
What's this? Is this our Edmund guy?
That's Adam Pugh.
Oh.
Notice he scored the ace of diamonds in last year's Freedom Index. Now, that doesn't mean he's perfect because we know only Oldham is perfect.
Well, what's an ace of diamonds mean anyway? He's much too handsome to be this stupid.
Ace of diamonds is tippy top.
It's first of all, to even make the deck, you got to be top third of the legislature.
He's in the top 4.
I want to know how the
top 4.
How do the suits work? You know.
Well, we figured Trump had to be the spade, so because Donald Trump uses the spade.
Well, you're gonna have to go philosophical next deck because the diamonds, are they non-profit diamonds or are they?
Oh, that's a dirty word with Tom.
Or are they fair trade diamonds?
There we go. Yes. Oh, boom.
Anyway, the bill, to finish this up and get on to a couple of things before we bring our guest Al Gerhart in from the Sooner Tea Party. This bill, Senate Bill 693, passed the Senate Public Safety Committee by a vote of 7-4 and heads to the Senate floor for consideration.
Yes. So, and I have problems with it. I mean, I endorse Cody Rogers, brand new freshman senator. He voted against this. Cody, you got some splaining to do. Dave Rader's got some splaining to do. There's 2 others in there.
There's a couple of things I got to say real quick, or I'm not going to be able to get them in. It'll be way too late. I celebrate Individual Merit Month every year in February for the individual merit that people create on their own behalf.
Yes.
I got to tell you what, some guest on some talk show on one of the AM radio Mount Rushmore 5, there was some guest that was talking about having just read Booker T. Washington's Up from Slavery, and it hooked me because he was talking about the Tuskegee Institute bought a kiln and learned by experimentation and investment of capital that they had to earn and borrow. They learned to make the finest bricks in Alabama, and that's how they funded the school. Now, me as a jeweler, I use a kiln. I was hooked on this concept that they had to use a fire, to a kiln. Yeah. So I endeavored to read the book Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington. I will tell you what, you know how I get all fired up about public education. The public education federally funded in this country has done a disservice to the Negro worse than it has done to anyone else. It has made me understand why they think reparations is the way to fix it, because they were robbed. I mean, we all have been robbed by the federally funded public school. Like for me, I can remember in 6th grade, I remember seeing the film of FDR pouring milk down the street and throwing eggs on the ground to save the world. Yeah. Okay, and even in 6th grade, I thought, why is wasting milk and eggs? Well, I didn't realize what they were doing was making milk a federally controlled substance. Okay, it's a federally controlled substance like heroin. In fact, stronger than heroin. Okay, there's no black market milk that I know of. Of course, I learned aspirin last time.
Oh, there is.
Okay.
In my home state of Minnesota, if you have any kind of transaction in raw milk, you are violating.
Okay, well, here I go. I'm here to learn.
I traded in raw goat's milk in California.
Don't tell us.
I traded in it. I was on the purchase.
All right. There's a black market. For my point is, every kid in America, 90% of them go through the public schools. By 6th or 7th grade, they should be forced to undergo a year's study would be worth it of the Booker T. Washington, one single book. They ought to spend an entire year going through the book because it is not simply a great autobiography of a great man. It is the nuts and bolts way to do it. Go literally from nothing to something. This tells you how to literally go from something to nothing, and it's not done in such a way that it's like formulated to grade 1, 2 through 6. It has to do with real life experiences. And the bottom line, and I'll finish on this, and there'll be more for me to say on Booker T. Washington, who's my new fame here. The Tuskegee Institute was able to fund their own boarding school and the books and the professors to teach by creating and selling a superior product. I do not see Tulsa Public Schools and Deborah Gist or Joy Hoffmeister creating a damn thing, and they get $2.5 billion every 300 and some odd days just here in Oklahoma. And the Tuskegee Institute was able to create their own product. And all I hear from Deborah Gist and Joy Hoffmeister is, the governor's not doing it right. Why don't you run your other? We got the most systematically racist government that exists in America is school government. Anybody else before I go on to one more thing?
I want to just complete my rabbit trail distraction here on the raw milk. My wife's grandfather was actually part of the effort back in the early 50s, mid 50s, to actually force out 80% of the creameries in Minnesota by mandating that every creamery could not sell their product unless it was homogenized and pasteurized.
Right.
And they 90% of the creameries went out of business. The biggest dairy firms, hello Land O'Lakes, hello Kraft, knocked out all the competition.
Wow.
Have you ever heard of Cloverleaf Dairy? No, but you've heard of Land O'Lakes. Why? Because Land O'Lakes was part of that whole cabal.
Yep. Well, and this goes right back. We're gonna talk one of these days, because I'm gonna be doing Constitution minutes. We're gonna talk about Wickard v. Filburn, case in 1937, I believe it was, and this was created by Woodrow Wilson and FDR, quite frankly.
Yep.
And there was a time that wheat was a black market item.
Oh yeah.
And remember, every single black market is created by prohibition. And you cannot have it in a free society. So if you see black market, it means we are not free.
To this day, peanuts still are. You cannot grow peanuts unless you have a federal license to grow it.
Yep.
Jimmy Carter was in on that cabal. He was a peanut farmer.
Yep. Well, and remember, and fighting it is nigh difficult because every single lawyer has a license. So they've sold themselves to the cabal. So how are you going to get out?
All right, guys.
Here's a toast to Tom McKay for his patience while we hijacked his topic.
Well, what else? That's why we're here. So that.
But here's the ultimate point. Booker T. Washington did it back before there was in all of this prohibition. He couldn't do the same thing today that he did back then. Why? Because he did it, without being told no. Nobody was there to tell him no.
Okay. So in addition to all the other history months, Tom, what are you calling this history month?
Individual Merit Achievement Month.
Individual Merit Achievement Month.
Merit doesn't go to groups. There's much like rights. There's no such thing as
declared
group right.
such by Tom McKay,
oh boy,
the moderator and host of 3D Politics.
Just to be sure, it's merit, not Merrick.
Yeah, merit, individual merit achievement.
No, I say that as a joke for anybody who's been following the news. Merrick Garland, who was rejected by the Senate for wasn't even given a hearing to become Supreme Court justice, is now running and being confirmed in the Senate for Attorney General of the United States.
Of course, Oldham, your comment is missing a context, and that's the next thing I want to talk about, is that I have declared not only Independent Merit Achievement Award month, but I am also an independent fact checker now. I've decided that I will independently fact check facts all the time. And so I am totally annoyed with you can see what really bothers them when they miss your context purposely. And I've got a little thing I'm going to share here, but you'll notice that if you have something that's close to true, but it doesn't bother them, they'll tag at the bottom of your deal, missing context. But if you say something about fracking, they cover it up on top of the pictures.
Oh, it might contain nudity.
Yeah, that's right. Just like that. So here's a little thing. Here's a little thing that I decided to create for my post. And it says, my post is not missing context. Science feedback and lead stories are collectivist entities that utilize non-human automated algorithms to censor dissent by ostracizing social profiles. My post contains the same information as a post checked by dependent fact checkers. Misleading fact checkers at science feedback and lead stories say information in my post is missing context, and fact checkers could mislead people. I've added a notice to the post. Now here you can see they're talking about COVID-19 has caused many deaths, you see. But I never mentioned COVID deaths. All I mentioned was the recovery rate. So for some reason, using a non-human automated response science feedback has presumed a context for my post that does not exist without consent. After tagging my post with their own pre-programmed perspective, they are attempting to discredit my social profile through forced association by connecting my post with others they have prejudged and are discriminatory against. This automated trolling squelch gate destroys the free exchange of ideas and constricts the dynamic flow of information. Censorship will not be tolerated. Same thing goes for the fact check of CDC of lead stories. Same thing. They use automated responses and suggest that they are adding context. There's no way that an automated response that pops up the minute I post has been calculated for context what they ever did. All they did was they looked at my thing, prejudged it to be associated by force on their part with some other thing they already don't like. There's no context involved. It's an automated response. Anybody before I go on?
No, it's good.
So
I've seen a number of times where people they've come back and said to things that I've disputed or groups that I'm a part of or I'm an admin in have disputed one of these fact check things, and they come back and they tell us very quietly, "Oh, we're sorry. We've restored your posts and taken down all the
here's your license back."
Exactly. And we made a boo-boo. And they send us a message. They don't ever put anything out about how they were wrong and that they needed to have more rigorous review. Instead, they just send you a quiet message that you then have to screenshot and send off, show to everybody what they're actually doing.
Yeah, it's a damn lie is what it is they're not adding context. And in fact, literally every single sentence is missing context. I mean, there's no way you can say any sentence that is anything that reflects all context at all times.
So if I want to ignore your context, Tom, then you have no context.
Dang it. Have I ever
learned to say,
Van?
I tried something. It was just a little test.
You got two microphones going, Van.
I do, man.
You got
so go ahead. If you've ever something.
There we go. Yeah, I tried something. Facebook put out a press release about 10 days ago. And so I posted it as an article on Sooner Politics page.
Okay.
Guess what they did? They fact checked it and they took it down.
Oh, my.
Yeah. It was their words. Now you know you're getting the bot treatment.
Right. Simple stuff. And, I can see here that Al Gerhart, co-founder of the Sooner Tea Party, is in the waiting room. And, of course, as you know, every Monday night we are here, all three of us. David Van, creator and editor of SoonerPolitics.org. He's an expert in Oklahoma state government, also a professional advocate for those needing mental health care, state committeeman for the Tulsa County GOP, and also currently running for the vice chair of the Tulsa County GOP. Also, of course, David Oldham, founder and scholar at constitutionalgrounds.com, political leader, educational leader, educational speaker. Van, we're going to have to work on our production.
I know it. Sorry.
I'm not
Hey,
gonna
at
let
least
you
we're
do
not
this.
floating
Oh, I
tonight.
forgot.
I'm not gonna let you do this anymore. You're fired.
I am. Al, we were supposed to transport you
Not
into
even
the
at the end of the
transport.
bit here. We're not even at the end of the music here. So much for pre-production, isn't that your line, Van?
Yeah.
Am I here?
Yes, and I'm
no.
fired.
Actually, the thing is, no, you're not here for about another 15 seconds.
Okay.
But
Wow,
you
just
are.
joining
Oh,
us,
we can all see you.
Al Gerhart being beamed in from the mothership. Thanks to David Van, featuring David Oldham, David Van, and Tommy McKay, your fine host right here every Monday night. 3D Politics Live. Tonight we got a special guest once again joining us with his solid repertoire and information. It's Al Gerhart, co-founder of the Sooner Tea Party, joining us right here on the 3D Politics Live on Facebook. Al, I appreciate you being here. We'll get
Yes,
this
sir.
figured out. You know, I get all worked up about how it's supposed to be, and then I get all uptight if it doesn't happen that way. But I'll get over it. No, which is
Be
a damn
careful,
lie.
Tom, what you
know
say. It might encourage him.
You know I'm never over it. So, so anyway, I appreciate you being here, Al, and you've done a great kind of read on this kind of an overview of the top GOP party races. They heat up from an Article 222 this year. Major precinct meetings and county conventions next weekend. Things are heating up in the GOP with larger than usual turnouts at some of the county conventions already held. We seem to have all the candidates announced for the state GOP chairman, vice chair elections that will happen at the state GOP convention. This article can be found on Sooner Politics and also, I'm sure, at Sooner Tea Party. So tell us what's in this article.
Well, we kind of cover who's running for chair and vice chair. You've got Charles Ortega. Charles is a rhino, of course, has always been a rhino. We kind of go over his Trump index, and we used to call it the rhino index. And his scores are down.
Into that. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Charles Ortega's scores have always been like down to 5 or 6 single digit, which is pretty bad, which means getting 1 out of 20 votes right or something like that. Of course, you got John Bennett, which is just wow. John he's a rock star in the conservative community. I think he just got attacked by the what was it, the Frontier? And then you've got, let's see, of course, our own David Van. And I'm going to mention something that most people probably don't know is that both of these men, Van and Bennett, were actually recruited. They were asked to run. They didn't decide this on their own. And to me, that is a huge point. When you get a guy that's willing to serve because he's been asked to serve versus someone going at it for their own political purposes. Right. You've got, let's see, I guess you've got the incumbent, which would be, what's this guy's name? Oh, I call him Shane Jemison. I call him Shame. He's pretty much a lobbyist. He works for the, I think it's the Chickashaws. I mean, I don't know. I've got a real problem with the lobbyists being involved in the party at that level.
It says here, Shane was the guest speaker at the Garvin County Democrat Party meeting. He was evicted from his apartment. So there's a little dirt that you've dug up. And, I mean, that happens to people sometimes.
You know what it does? People get behind and they lose their job stuff. But let me tell you what usually happens. They get that eviction notice and they leave. It is rare when you have to put you through the court process and hire an attorney and spend all that money. That to me was kind of troubling. People fall on the hard times. I get it, but this isn't one of those.
But do we know what? I mean, that sounds like we're digging up dirt. Are we? I mean, is there a reason that we would bring that up? That would
absolutely
come up.
It goes to the man's character.
Well, maybe there's a disagreement between he and the landlord.
Well,
and it's just simply a disagreement.
All right. I mean, it's public.
Do they not have the right to, their day in court and settle things one way or the other?
I think he did have a day in court. didn't they?
He did.
I mean, wasn't this a court proceeding or no? Did it
There
not
was
go to that?
There was a court proceeding. I believe it was settled. A lot of times they settle those things before they get in front of the judge because, you know, the deadbeat knows what's going to happen when he gets before the judge. They usually make a settlement on it. And that's what happened in this case.
Throwing bombs. You're just chunking bombs here, Al.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this was over money. We know it was over money or something.
Okay, look, here's
I'm curious because I mean, I don't want to use this forum to be that somebody has a problem with somebody is one thing, but
let's get to the politics.
Throwing dirt.
Character matters, though. Character matters.
So
we learned that with Bill Clinton.
Tell me about Jemison's politics. What makes him from his programs and his ideologue? What is it? What do you got on him?
You know what? He's working for the tribes. Guess who he's going to represent when he's a GOP vice chair? He's going to represent the tribe's interest. Why do you think they sent him there?
Well, okay. Well, I don't think that's necessarily bad, but I mean, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, you said the Cherokee Indian.
What I'm saying is, I don't think that's a slam. Anybody who's, is a member of if you were elected, Al, you would represent the Sooner Tea Party people.
I would like to think I would represent Republican values.
Well, maybe that's what Jemison thinks.
Yeah, my thing, I think, is
how long is he going to hold that job if he steps on the tribe's toes?
Yeah, I would have a problem with, say, a campaign consultant also running a party, because how do you have a fair primary? In fact, I had this talk with Natasha Dahm, and she just said, no, I'm done with campaign managing and consulting. Okay, fine. But I appreciated that pledge. And you know what? I voted for her. So, there are some jobs that are going to be a conflict or a real problem if you're going to be a party chair. There's some things you got to stay on.
And are you saying, Van, that this is part of the problem with Jemison, is that he's a
more so as I know he has worked for campaign consulting companies very recently, as Cindy Byrd, who I supported. I don't anymore, and I admit I screwed up there because I saw how she went after Epic.
It's hard to find a good one.
It is. I've supported a lot that I've regretted supporting.
Here's a guy I've met, and I like. I like his person that I've met in Tulsa. Darren Gantz is running for Tulsa County GOP slot. Darren's a solid conservative Trump supporter. Excellent choice for chairman, says the article from Al. You want to talk to us about why you like Darren Gantz?
Man, I've known Gantz since about 2012. He's always been great about raising money. He's always been right on all the issues. I can't think of, I can only think of a handful of times where we may have had disagreements on policies and they were relatively minor matters, or there was something that he was just trying to, I remember at one point he was trying to feel out the mood on a particular topic. So he would play devil's advocate. But Darren has always been rock solid and can raise money like no one else you've ever seen, even in the Tulsa area. I think Rhonda Volumont-Smith is running against him. Is that correct?
Well, I'm reading here from your article, and I am perplexed because the Rhonda that I've worked with, opposing him, you say, in the article, is, and that is opposing Darren Gantz, Rhonda Volumont-Smith, longtime leader, Tulsa 912 group. Rhonda is an anti-Trumper?
You bet. At the 2016 convention, whenever Trump was, getting the nomination, she did everything she could to talk, to basically get the other delegates to turn against Trump and support Cruz. That is documented.
Now, I will tell you, I was a Cruz. I started out a Cruz guy, and then moved my support to Trump, not necessarily before. I don't remember the exact chronology. What I realized at some point was that Cruz is not a television president, and that's what we're going to have. And Cruz can't do it, and his children are not going to be able to take the blame all the time. Boom, there it is. So, I will tell you, to me, if I didn't know you to be an honorable person that tells it like you think it is, and somebody brought me this article and said Ronald Volumont-Smith is an anti-Trumper, if she made a pro-Cruz statement in 2016, in my mind, that doesn't make her an anti-Trumper. In fact, 3 out of the 5 things I've been involved with have been pro-Trump based on Rhonda Vilmont Smith asked me to,
that was, I have to say
She
that was
argued,
a touch.
She
That was
argued, though, to throw the delegate votes to Cruz away from Trump. She argued.
This is like 5 years ago.
That is 4 or 5 years ago.
4.5,
and here we're 4.5 years ago.
Right.
She's never been evicted. That's the main
thing. Here's the thing. Rhonda got on board the Trump train.
As did I.
At one point she did.
David did. Tom did. I did, to the degree that he's constitutional and all of that.
He's a populist. Trump's a populist, and he made constitutionalism popular for a while. And that, nobody ever said to me, "Oh, Trump's a conservative." I never said that.
Well, we just let's update things, because your information is 5 years old from what I'm hearing.
4.5.
Can you update your attitude about Rhonda? She's not an anti-Trumper accurately today.
Oh, no.
You know what?
You can't find somebody bigger.
After trying to sabotage Trump and steal the what do you call it, the election from him, or the candidacy from him, you bet she came on board. You bet she came on board. But at that point, she was solidly anti-Trump. Okay. Now, Rhonda and I go back to 2009. We've had a long history. And I've never trusted the woman. I've had plenty of reasons not to. There's been plenty of instances when you go, wow, and the one thing that Campaign for Liberty, Campaign for Liberty and Right to Work and the group called National Association of Gun Rights, they all train together 1 weekend a year usually it's down in Kissimmee, Florida, down at Disney World. They all train together. And one of the things they taught us was you're going to lose half the people that you train. Well, Rhonda and I went through that very same training, sitting right next to each other. It was up there in Tulsa whenever the training happened. I got it and she didn't. And from that point on, it was like you kind of got the sense that Rhonda's out there. Rhonda's out there for Rhonda. She's not out there for the movement, for the party. Now, everybody expects to get something out of politics because no one's paying us, right? You guys are doing this for a reason. You've got an agenda. Everybody does. There's nothing wrong with that. But over the years, we've watched Rhonda have her meetings, and she would bring in these rhinos and basically give them legitimacy and stuff. And she'd even bring in Democrats to her little group. Now, I
got to throw something out there. If you are doing everything you can to help promote what you believe are constitutional issues, and you are going to open up a political buffet, so to speak, to help support your political issues, and the only meat that you can get for your buffet is rhino after rhino after rhino, but you're still committed to supporting who else will fight with you, okay? She only had, it's only been in the last 4 years we've been able to solidify some meat around here. You can't find anybody that will say the right thing. We had John Bennett on the show 3 weeks ago. Here's a guy who literally says the right thing, stands up for the right thing, says the right thing. Okay, but you're not hardly ever going to find a guy like that. And especially 6 years ago, Rhonda served up whatever meat they had. So legitimizing rhinos, I don't know if that's really, again, it's a nice angle for the article, but I don't think it's necessarily accurate.
One of the things that the political training taught us was that you never expose your people to the opposition. You just don't do it. You immortalize them. You elevate these people when you do that. It's just not done.
Okay, I don't want to beat it to death, but what I guess what I'm saying is, we're conjecturing about the past, and you said she's legitimizing rhinos. And what I'm saying is she was promoting who was available at the time. She couldn't not do, if she didn't promote someone, she wasn't going to do what was her calling. You guys are listening to the fantastic Verbal Viking, your host, right here at 3D Politics Live every Monday night. And that little whistle tells us I got to remind us. Tonight, we've got our special guest, Al Gerhart, Sooner Tea Party. Go see him out there at the SoonerTeaParty.com. Always every Monday night, my fine cohorts, David Van from SoonerPolitics.org. org, and David Oldham from constitutionalgrounds.com. Go ahead with your response, Al.
Well, I'll give you another little example of why I've never, why I learned not to be a Rhonda person. We were going back, and this must have been late 2012, 2013, something like that. And I get a phone call from Dave Bell. I think a few people there are going to know who Dave Bell is. And then I get a phone call about an hour later from Darren Gantz, and both had the same story. They were telling a story about Rhonda going into, what was that guy's name? He's the dadgum, is he the, not the treasurer, the insurance commissioner.
Dang it, Al. I said you had solid facts.
Mulready. Thank you. It's been too many years.
Gosh, yeah.
So she had gone into Mulready's office, was talking to him and said, well, are you going to run the Obamacare bill again? And Mulready said, no, thanks to Gerhart. And she mentioned me, she mentioned Gantz, and she mentioned Dave Bell. Well, because of those guys, it's pretty much dead. We can't run it. Now you go back to previous year, and I had led the effort to robocall, and we had knocked it down with about $5,000 worth of robocalls. This was about, it must have been, was it 2012 or I think it was 2012, right about the tax time, because we had 10 freshman Republicans that stood up and did a press release and said, we're no longer supporting the Obamacare bill, which was the insurance exchange, by the way, for the state of Oklahoma. And then 3 days later, Mary Fallon folds and gives the money back. 1 day later, the insurance commissioner gives the money back. I believe is how it worked out. So anyway, so I heard this story from these two guys, and I just called Rhonda. I said, Rhonda, is this true? Did he actually give us credit for that? And she said, yes, he did. And she told me the story. Well, great. I've got 3 people telling me what happened, including the original source. So I ran a story about it. Monday morning, I get a phone call from Rhonda, and she said, Al, I want you to retract that story. Well, Rhonda, you're the one that verified the story. You were the one telling it. Well, I know, but so-and-so got angry. Who was it? Amanda Teagard got angry because you got credit for that, you and Dave Bell and Darren Gantz. And, like, what kind of person would do something like that? And what it tells you is that her politics, their political viability is more important than the truth sometimes. And I got a real problem with people like that.
Well, okay.
I don't mind you being against me, but I want you to be honest with me.
Let me try to balance it out. It's to a certain degree, there's some conjecture going on. It's hard for you to be able to accurately say what's going on in somebody else's brain. I remember Mitch McConnell made the statement about how on the 6th, the protesters thought, and that's where I quit listening. He can't tell me what protesters are thinking. I think you're adding some thought process to Rhonda.
Okay. Yeah. And Tom, you weren't there, but Tom, I want to say this, something where you were around to see this.
Okay.
This was just 15 months ago. Now, Al Gerhart had some real problems with how things were being handled with the state party. He wrote an article. Now, I'm the founder of, Sooner Politics, which is a platform. I've told every one of my bloggers, several dozen of them, I say, I don't edit your stuff. It's going to run just the way it is.
Okay.
And amongst my bloggers were not only Al, but have been Rhonda and have been Amanda. I've invited all 3 of them. Now, Al has been disciplined and continues to write. Rhonda and Amanda, not so much, but that's fine. Okay. But I was called and threatened and ordered. You have got to take Al off of Sooner Politics.
Who ordered this?
I got a call directly from Rhonda. Okay. And I said,
what was her motivation for wanting the story removed?
She said to me, now Al basically was saying, that either McLean needs to step down as state party chair or he needs to step off of the board of city elders. That was Al's point in that article.
Okay.
And I said, so you're telling me I need to either quit Sooner Politics or quit being a state committee member? She said, yeah. And I said, well, it sounds like you're telling me to do the very thing that you're criticizing Al Gerhart for telling David McLean to do. That you can't do both, it's one or the other. And so then Rhonda said, when I told her, she says, I'll call you back. I haven't gotten a call from her since. Okay, that was about 18 months ago. Now.
That well. Then they attacked you a few weeks later.
And then all of a sudden I get wind that, by the way, there's a county committee meeting and they're going to make a motion to have me removed from office. and that was led by Rhonda and Amanda, and it was pushed by Bob Jack. Now, it was rebuffed on several different factors, and then it was dropped. In fact, Bob Jack and I talked, and he's moving on, and other bloggers have confirmed that. And since then, Bob and I have worked together cordially. Now, is trust there? I don't think it is, but I'm going to act cordially and respectfully and do the party's work. And anybody's committed to, I will. But my answer has always been, it has been at the meeting, that the solution is more free speech, not less. So if people are going to be committed to being an open and allow all factions and everybody to have equal access to the party and everything, great. So my commitment is I extend that same pledge to work with everybody. I know it's kind of a conundrum that I'm willing to work with people who want to have me cut off at the knees. But that's what exactly was my experience.
And here's the problem that we have, and it's within the party.
Yeah.
The problem is we have a lot of people within our party promoting a lot of garbage that is 100% illegal. 100% illegal. Unconstitutional.
Oh, unconstitutional ideas.
That makes it illegal.
Well, that makes sense.
Well, to talk about it? Whoa, where's the free speech guy here?
No. No, this is the point. It's not getting exposed as being the illegality that it is. Hey, I don't have a problem talking about it, but let's call it what it is.
Well, blue laws, for instance.
Not sugarcoat it and make it legitimized or anything like that. Let's make sure that it's called illegal and that it's vile, it's immoral, it's evil. Let's call it those things.
Okay, such as the blue laws we talked about earlier. Proponents of blue laws.
They're 100% illegal.
Okay, I'm just wanting people to understand the context you mean.
Yes.
Political ideas that are unconstitutional.
I want more free speech, but I want the truth in the midst of that free speech. I hate liars, and I am sick and tired of liars promoting themselves as somehow moral and good, and it's not happening.
Okay. All right, David, I've got to ask you a question then. when Rhonda called me up and asked me to retract her statement, what was that? Was that a lie?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about retract what statement?
I can tell you a request is not a lie because it's not.
I mean, did something happen? I'm going to take your word that it did.
David, you tell me something one day, the next day you tell me to retract it. All right. What happened there? You didn't. What I'm saying, if you were to tell me something one day and ask me to retract it, was that saying retract that because
you're just talking about? What I'm getting at is I want free speech.
I can answer
Remember, that. I want truth. I don't want.
Well, how about you, Tom? How do you?
I'll take that one. I'll take that one. It could quite easily be. Now, David Vann is a professional. I mean, he reports the news. Okay, he calls me and talks to me privately, and I kind of have to know, especially if it's a topic that can be, discussed outside of the realm of proper discussion, at least for timing. Then it can be a situation where I can think it's off the record. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm just saying there's a lot of room. The way that you are characterizing what she says and thinks adds a lot of narration to it as opposed to just a simple eyewitness account. Her requesting you to take it off, there's not a lie. What that means is, damn it, I didn't want that up there.
She'd already told 2 other people. And
just because I go around and say it doesn't mean I want it.
I'm not defending anybody in anything, just so you know.
Yeah,
I'm addressing something that Van said, and that was great. But let's call a spade, and let's not be putting out there that that Alan Combs is a great moral man, kind of a thing, and write all good sorts of good things about him, and call him good. God. That's what I'm getting at. That's
Alan Combs.
Yeah, exactly. I thought my Marianne and Ginger reference was old. He's like Alan Combs. I'm like, she's not even cute.
Here's what I've found happens over the process of this politics. I've been in this since 2009. That's not particularly long, but I think I've learned a few things. You're going to run against two kind of people. You're going to run up against the kind of people that the movement is everything. They'll sacrifice themselves. They'll sacrifice everything to get the movement a little further down the road. And you run into people that for them, it's all about what's in it for me. And I'm sure there's a little bit of mix, some people, a little bit of mix of both. But what I've found is you can really only trust the guys that are in it for the movement. I've seen that from John Bennett. I've seen that from David Vann. I've seen that from Darren Gantz in spades. I haven't seen that from Rhonda, and that's why I can't.
Well, then I would, and mind you, I've got a personal bias here. Okay, my wife is running and is very good friends with Rhonda. So, and so I know a few things that aren't coming out, and I have been pretty quiet about it. But if you knew all the things that I know from behind the scenes, and I'm friends with all of these people, I don't want anybody slandered or things said that aren't true. I know that there is a heart there with say Rhonda that is being denigrated right at the moment, and that gives me some makes me.
Let me give you another great example.
Going. But here's the thing.
Let him finish. Let him finish out.
So there's going to be subjective things, and I want this clear. These are subjective arguments. They're not objective. It's a way we perceive things, and this we've got to get through as a party, because if we don't get to the other side and get unified.
Was I being subjective in reporting the instances over the last 18 months that I just got done narrating to you?
No.
The subjective I wasn't impugning. I wasn't assigning attitudes to anybody.
No.
I was talking actions.
Not talking about that. That certain things have happened.
Those are actions I talked about.
Those are actions. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what Al was talking about, and ascribing a motive, ascribing things to it that, quite frankly, are wrong. And
David, now you're attacking my integrity.
But I'm
saying what it boils down to.
Listen,
told me one thing.
Let's let Al respond.
And then she asked me to retract what she said.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry. You either lied to me in the beginning.
Okay, and let Al listen. Al is our guest, and we want Al to have a chance to talk. Oldham, you're here all the time, and
I'm going to give you another example why I'm not a Rhonda fan. I believe this was 2012. It might have been 2013, but I'm pretty sure it was 2012. I drove up to Tulsa with a van load full of newspapers. We had them printed at great expense. I think there were 3 pallets, and these pallets cost $1,000 a pallet. These little newspapers, little 16-page political. We went for 3 races. Now, Rhonda happened to be running for office, and I paid for a magazine specifically for her district to help her out. Okay. But the big thing was, it wasn't just her. It was all the other candidates, including Bridenstine was running against, what was it, Sullivan, I believe it was?
Yes.
Is that the guy's name? Okay, so I took $1,000 out of my pocket. I had these magazines printed up. I brought 3 pallets up there. 2 of the pallets got distributed. Rhonda's didn't. She refused to distribute those magazines. She wasn't, you know what? She didn't have to distribute in her district if that's what she didn't like. And I didn't. I think I mentioned her. My memo usually is you don't talk much about the candidates. You may mention that they're running. You talk about the bad guy in the race. You don't praise the person that you're wanting to help. I don't think I praised Rhonda at all. I just said she's running. She's a constitutional kind of person. That's it. 1 or 2 sentences, and I want to start talking about her opponent. Those newspapers got trashed. Now, $1,000 is hard to come by in this kind of volunteer thing. And I never said a word about that until this very moment. But that's the kind of thing, and that's the reason I am not a Rhonda supporter. I don't trust her. I never will. I've been around her too much.
Al, I appreciate it. Before you finish, and I don't mind you to stick around, because I do want to talk about John Bennett. I think that if I am bored as hell, I know that the audience is too, because we are into a ton of personal crap from 2016 and before.
Welcome to politics.
So I mean,
2012.
this is really reaching back and worrying about the details of personal slights. Nobody's perfect. I mean, except for probably me. But
Wait, I thought that was my moniker.
no, you're just the good-looking one. I'm perfect in all other ways. Yeah, but you're gonna have to let me reset it up again, Van, because we have format, believe it or not, here at 3D Politics. So as you know, every week. Here we go, kiddies. I'm going to set it all up again at the top of the hour. It goes just like this. The American Constitutional Republic. Affairs of state in Oklahoma. The beliefs, principles, opinions, and views of people just like you, me, and Al, and David's, both the Vans, Oldham, all the rest of them. Here we are again with 3D Politics live every week on Monday. I'm your fine host, Tommy McKay, with David Van, David Oldham, and our special guest this week, heading into the top of the hour, Al Gerhart. It's just been a blazing fireball, setting them off right and left. And I got to say, as we come out of the Rhonda segment,
Let's talk about John Bennett.
I want to get on with John Bennett, but I got to say, Rhonda has helped me. And old Van has got something to say. If it wasn't for Rhonda, I couldn't have this fine painted background. And so while I have complaints with Pat Campbell and other people, I'm just going to move on. Van, what do you want to do to finalize this Rhonda thing? We'll move into John Bennett.
Yeah, here's the thing. I have done some great things I'm proud of, teaming up with people like Rhonda, okay? I've also had some as I've talked about, some very unfortunate falling out. And with Amanda as well.
You teamed up with Frank Grove at one point. How low could you get?
Yeah, look how he treated you. You know, so
crap down to him for that.
I'm always looking for where there are opportunities to work with somebody, okay? Bob Jack, for all of the things I've had my problems with, I think he's got some great skill sets. I think in some ways he's done the county chairmanship role. He set a high bar in some ways. Okay. Yep. But I've had other things that I've had problems with. I'm going to say this about McLean, and McLean and I talked Saturday, and he's got some skills. He's got some things that are a problem, and I've talked to other people about it. Oh, nice belly, Al. I think you've been working on that a while.
I was trying to get rid of that glare.
Okay. Okay.
Don't scare us like that.
But I want to say this,
like a Toomey event.
Everybody here that we've talked about, I see some great attributes and I see some difficulties. And my job has always been to work around the difficulties. I mean, I work with you two guys, Oldham and McKay, right? You got great skills. You got some things I got to work with you on.
Gosh, man.
Because you're human.
Coming next week.
You're human. I mean, we aren't to Oldham stature yet, but we're working on it. So I just do want to say this. It's going to be important for anybody to find ways to work through these difficulties, because you're going to keep butting into them with everyone. Now, the person who's the most difficult in the room should not be the one in charge of the meeting, right? So we got to figure out who's got the skill set here. We got to make a decision. But I'm telling you, we all have our issues, okay?
Amen.
What's that for sound political?
No, I think you're right about skill sets. I said it like this back in the PTA days, and that was I will only help you all out if you build a team, because I'm not a diplomat. I'm not the guy like Van who works with people. I'm more, now I can't throw bombs like Al, my God, but I'm not so friendly. I'll say, well, that's bull crap, and I'll point it out. And then people say, I can't believe him. And then Van stands up and says, well, my established comment, my colleague means. And so I understand the flame throwing and bomb throwing. That's part of the political process. We have to get ourselves noticed. Some of the things you say about Rhonda, I don't see that in her. You have a personal thing from long ago, but I just got to say, Van's right that we have to pull together as a team. Some people block, some people throw the ball, some people catch the ball, and not everybody's a wide receiver. We're just going to have to, somebody needs to call bull crap like Al, and then Van needs to stand up and smooth it over with the opposing side.
Yeah, on the final statement on this.
Okay.
Is that I want to hear from our candidates. Why should we vote for you? Not why should we not vote against your opponent or for your opponent?
Right.
This is an important thing because, folks, when it comes down to fighting the leftists, fighting the socialists, that we need to work together. And if we've made enemies within our own camp, that we didn't have to, okay? I want to hear a vision for what's going forward, but I also want to know, do the facts behind you meet what you're pledging? Because in some of these people, they don't, okay? We all fall short.
So, Al, I see your comments about Rhonda, and I raise you my disdain for Dylan Goforth, senior editor of The Frontier, a nonprofit that bills itself as illuminating journalism.
Wow.
Okay, I'm over it. So here it is from February 19th, 2021. Dylan Goforth, senior editor of the nonprofit Frontier. Oklahoma's leading pro-gun group endorses anti-Islam former lawmaker for chairman of state's Republican Party. Can these people never write a headline? They should hire me to write headlines, Channel 8 included. From the article, John Bennett, who said Islam is a cancer and asked Muslim students if they beat their wives while he served in the House of Representatives, is one of the two men seeking the role of Republican Party chair. So here's what I like is here's a guy, John Bennett, United States Marine who served in the military. It was in the Gulf War, right?
Oh, no. Afghanistan and Iraq.
Okay. Anyway, here's a guy who literally drew the ire of literal warriors. But here, Dylan Goforth, the nonprofit that bills itself as illuminating journalism, says this guy, John Bennett, drew the ire of Muslims groups when he called them a name. I'm sorry. This is just pathetic journalism, if you ask me. The Council on American Islamic Relations is a nonprofit that bills itself as a promoter of Muslim activism. Those are my words. Because he continues to point out everybody who's a nonprofit except for when he doesn't want to. See, he begs for donations.
The Frontier.
The Frontier is a nonprofit that bills itself as illuminating journalism. So he's all worried about this thing in 2016. This is Dylan Goforth, okay? And he's worried about a thing. So we should not be negotiating with terrorists, period. He quotes Bennett. So my question to Dylan Goforth from the Frontier nonprofit, Frontier, should we? Should we negotiate with terrorists? Is that the way to do it? I'm just saying, what is his
in his world, yes,
diplomatic thing? Now, I'm just going to share a thing here because I care so much. Now, Dylan Goforth is famous for this quote here. Can you all see this? This is Dylan Goforth, and he is explaining in his tweet here from 10:43 a.m. August 14th of 2020 that Dylan Goforth says that he would literally kill a person, any person, just name them, to be able to watch a new movie in a movie theater. And everybody that I complained to said, "Can't you tell he's joking?" And then he says, "I'm not joking. We're talking about murder, folks, of the illegal variety, and I am willing." That's Dylan Goforth from the nonprofit organization The Frontier, illuminating journalism. Now, that's not the only problem. I'm sorry. That's not the only problem we have with Dylan Goforth.
Now, Jack Dempsey took that down, right? That's hate speech, so he took it down, right?
Oh, I'm sure it was missing context, Van. So now, before he said I would literally kill a person, that's Dylan Goforth from the Frontier threatening violence upon the community. Before that ever happened, Dylan Goforth liked Brett Chapman's Columbus has discovered a new look in Connecticut tweet where they had knocked the head off of a statue. So as far as Islam is concerned and iconoclasm is concerned, Dylan Goforth is an iconoclast, and he loves the idea of destroying personal, private, individual expression through art. So my comment was, because he had already said something about destroying property, then he came out with his tweet about threatening murder. I said, first, this is what we learn from the movies: first property, next persons, right? The first they shoot a dog, then they shoot a person, right? It starts out with destroying property, then they destroy persons, then you escalate the violence, and this is an escalation of violence propped up by a professional journalist. It's malignant to the civil community. Dylan Goforth is tearing at the civil community by threatening violence and then suggesting he's joking. Now, he's not the only problem we got. Casey Bartholomew on 1170 Talk Radio said, 10:06 approximately is when I quoted. He actually made this is when I twittered. He quoted between 9:45 and 10 a.m. on January 27th of this year, Casey Bartholomew, Talk Radio 1170, threatening more violence from the media. Casey Bartholomew, quote, "You could find him and beat the hell out of him." Now, what he's talking about is some guy made a deal with the state and sold them PPE. Then he couldn't fulfill the order. Okay, and so the state is looking at suing him. And somebody asked Casey Bartholomew, what else could you do besides take him to court? You know, and he says, you could find him and beat the hell out of him. Here is Casey Bartholomew suggesting that the state would be somehow justified in beating the hell out of a private industry person trying to deliver PPE. Okay, apparently, my comment, apparently media promotion of violence is considered a reasonable option for the state to find retribution from citizens. So we go on here with Dylan Goforth. Now, here's the problem with Dylan Goforth being such a joker all the time. And we all know he's joking when he says we're going to murder people. But the problem is he is an influencer. He is influencing people. He's a media outlet. And here is Dylan Goforth responding to his precious G.T. Bynum at the city of Tulsa.gov. Has the streets in such good shape, he says. What a relief. Dylan Goforth says on February 11th, what a relief it is that the city of Tulsa has got the streets in good shape. But what does his fan base say? Quinn Fields asked Dylan Goforth, is this real or sarcasm? I need to know so I can make it out. So you see, Dylan Goforth, his readers can't even tell when he's telling the truth about the streets. So is it sarcasm or is it really true, Dylan? Would you literally kill a person, any person, just name them, just to watch a movie? Are you not joking? Am I done yet? And don't forget, Dylan Goforth coming from the Frontier, the nonprofit who claims to illuminate journalism.
You know, if we get Rhonda on here for equal time, Dylan's going to want equal time as well.
Good luck, Dylan.
I'm wondering if he's been visited by the police, the TPD, Joint Terrorism Task Force.
Right, and here's what I want.
I have a friend of us all. We all know her, who's been visited for just quoting the law.
Here's the deal, and here's what I'm going to demand. I'll just rush right to it. Dylan, you're going to have to make a public apology to the Tulsa community, to all your readers, to the Frontier readers, a personal apology that you'll not only remove the tweet if you haven't already, Dip, but go ahead and personally and publicly apologize to me for the Frontier and your abusive behavior to the community, to the Facebook people and the rest of everyone and all your journalistic peers for threatening murder and saying you're not joking. That is not acceptable in the community that I live in, to let our media threaten violence against the public. I'm sorry. It's not going to work for me, gentlemen.
Does he owe Bennett an apology? That's what I want to know.
Well, let's talk about the guy's journalism skills. The one thing I found in writing, I guess we've been writing this newsletter for 10 years now, and you better be accurate. You better not fib. You better not elaborate. You better publish only the facts or you'll get sued. Now, if you're right, they can't sue you because they know they'll win, and chances are you'll dig up more dirt on them while you're digging. Yeah. But now, Mr. Whatever this guy's name is that wrote
Has Dylan Goforth ever been evicted? That is the question. His name is Dylan Goforth. He works for the nonprofit Frontier, who claims that they illuminate journalism.
Well, go down in that story where it talks about this Sultari or whatever his name is, the Muslim guy, where he was almost not allowed to attend an event in 2016.
All right, from the story, Adam Soltani, the executive director of CARE Oklahoma, said hearing Bennett's name again was a bit like going back in time, which is what Goldforth has done in this article, has said back in time, living in the past of his personal slight. He said this is from the article. He is quoting Soltani, quote, he said these allegations that all mosques in Oklahoma are jihadi training grounds, that I'm one of the biggest terrorists in Oklahoma. So here's what's going on, since I may have confused it. Adam Soltani is upset that Bennett said that he was, Soltani, one of the biggest terrorists in Oklahoma. Is that true?
Well, going down to the part about where he wasn't allowed to attend that meeting. It was said in 2016. He wasn't
Which
allowed
person was not allowed?
Soltani was claiming he wasn't allowed.
Soltani, too, has complained of death threats that he received years ago. He felt he were connected to Bennett's vitriol. He noticed that in 2016, Bennett held an anti-Muslim training. No. Soltani, no. I don't see which part you're talking about.
Let me see if I can find it for you.
Here you go.
He noted Solani had complained of death threats he received years ago. He noted that in 2016, when Bennett held an anti-Muslim training that was co-sponsored by Cleat, Bennett tried to have him banned from attending. Do you see that part?
No, but I'll go with it. What are you saying about it?
Here, let me tell you what actually happened on that day. I'm sitting down at my lawyer's office with the general counsel of the ACLU, guy by the name of Brady Henderson. And I had heard this little riffraff, a fight going on the radio coming in. And so we took care of our business down there. It was about when they were trying to blackmail me or what would you call it? Railroad
prosecute
me.
You.
Yeah. Okay. And we got done with that. And I said, well, let's talk about this Solani thing. And I said, give me a minute. And I pulled my phone out and I called Bennett, got him on the phone, put him on speaker, told him who you were talking with. And I said, John, I'm going to ask you a favor. And it's your favor too. And I know it's not you. I knew exactly who it was. It was Michael Haney, was the guy that was basically putting the thing on, him and Frank Goffey, which was a former Undersecretary of Defense, I believe he was. But I said, I'm going to ask you to let this guy into your meeting. Let him set up the galley. Because you're taking a beating on it publicly. There's nothing there that, that really he's going to learn that's going to hurt anybody. And it'll basically diffuse the whole situation. John said, you bet.
So you and Bennett personally went out of your way to get Cleat to let Soltani in.
Well, Cleat wasn't running it. It was some continuing education. Cleat had had kind of put a
right. I'm part of that. Yeah, for people to get continuing training.
So what Bennett did was he said, yes, it's a good idea. We're going to do that. Now, Michael Haney was a Washington attorney that I had introduced Bennett to years before, probably a couple of years before. And I kind of dropped the ball on that, and I should have kept a closer eye on Bennett with that group. And they kind of started running him a little bit too far and kind of used him in a couple of ways. And I mean, John is a big boy. He was part of it and everything, but I think he probably he could have used my counsel at that point not to get in too deep with him. And Michael, he wound up getting booted out of the group because he had some money problems. He had something about some money was raised and he wanted to take a big chunk of it, for his expenses, and that kind of got him booted out of there. But it wasn't Bennett that wouldn't let this guy in. It was a guy by the name of Frank Goffey, who's a former Undersecretary of Defense and this Washington, D.C. attorney. But once I talked to Bennett said, sure, we'll let him in. And so Brady was happy, and that avoided a lawsuit. And of course, Brady wasn't happy about that because he was wanting to beat this to death in the media. But rather than John getting beat up on that, I took care of the problem. And then later on, Brady Henderson went down with me and I introduced him to John Bennett. Hey, you guys work out the issues here. Let's work about, make these guys comfortable, Muslims comfortable, and let's weed out the terrorists and let's all get along. And they got to meet each other. So, but anyway, this wasn't 2016. This was 2013. They didn't even get the date right. What kind of journalist will post a fact like that and get the year wrong?
Wait a minute, Al, you're bringing people
journalism
together? Al, you're getting people to work together and get along?
Well, don't spread that around, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's not what we have here.
You guys will be shocked at the people that work with me that no one will ever find out about.
I don't name names, but I'm privy to some of that. And yes, it is amazing.
Spirit
but
of Christmas past.
That this author didn't even check the basic facts. And when I read that story, I went back and I looked it up online, couldn't find anything in 20. So I called John. I said, John, did you guys do a 2016 training? No, sir, only that one in 2013. That's what I thought. But the whole darn thing that Soltani put out there was a completely fabrication.
Yeah.
He was allowed to come in. They had we wrote a story about it. We called the story "Muslim Horde Invades Capitol." We were joking because they had like 5 or 6 people show up, and they left after about an hour, and there was only 2 of them. And we took pictures of it. Charlie Meadows came in and sat down beside the guy at one point, shook his hand and talked to him. But the whole story was a fabrication as far as Soltani and Kerr. Now, Kerr was an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation prosecution. I don't know why they didn't prosecute him, but they should have. But to this day, the FBI is not allowed to work with Kerr. That tells you something right there. It's because of their ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. So this whole thing was nothing but he was talking to his base. He was attacking Bennett, and by the way, he was attacking Don Spencer, and Don was stupid enough to go in there and participate in it.
Let me just remind everybody you're still listening and joining us once again on a Monday night, starting at 7-ish, and we go as long as we want and as long as we can. Tommy McKay, your fine host here, your verbal Viking, along with our special guest, Al Gerhart from the Sooner Tea Party, and of course my 2 cohorts, David Vann and David Oldham from Sooner Politics and Constitutional Grounds, respectively. Al, I really appreciate you joining us and putting up with my Dylan Goforth rant, but I think we can all agree, regardless of Rhonda Vilmont Smith, Dylan Goforth is a real loser.
Well, you know what? Rhonda has done some good things, and she'll continue to do some good things. In my opinion, she's just not suited for that post.
Well, and you've got a lot of hard critique on a lot of people, and so I appreciate that in you. But as we move on, anything else about John Bennett? I thought it was a real poor piece by the Frontier. And what you're telling me is there was even more inaccuracies there brought to us by the poor writing.
Okay.
Man, what do you got?
I got one little thing, and I'm not going to name the source, but former lawmaker, yeah, I know, former lawmaker saw that article and saw that it was OK2A was endorsing Bennett and Dylan Goforth smearing both of them.
Yes.
And the lawmaker said, Al, did you hear what this lawmaker, did you hear the same story? It's like, may I be the first to say congratulations, Chairman Bennett. If you can get the Frontier all mad at you, there must be something good, is what the fella said.
Going back in time.
I met John Bennett back in, it must have been June or July of, must have been 2010. John called me up and he said, from out of the blue, they said y'all help people, and I'm running against Glenn Bub Smithson, and here in Sallisaw, will you help me? I said sure. So we met down at an Arby's there in Henrietta, Oklahoma, halfway between Sallisaw. By the way, Sallisaw is my hometown, so I'm from that area. And we sit there talking, and I listened to John, and he talked for a few minutes. And the only thing he had wrong was he believed that the Chamber of Commerce could create jobs. And that's the only thing about him. I said, I need to straighten you out on that. But other than that, you're spot on, and we'll help you.
It's a very romantic notion.
We ran about $1,000 worth of advertising into that district against Glenn Bud Smithson. and beat him. First time in state history that a Republican took that House seat.
Wow.
And it's over with. John calls me up a couple of days later after he catches his breath, and he says, "Now what?" The famous line from Mr. Smith Goes to DC, right? Now what? And I said, "John, you support you represent your constituents. If I have something I want to bring to you, I'll bring it to you, and hopefully I'll get you to listen to me." And that's all we ever expected out of people.
Yeah.
John, but I've known him since then, and every time he ran a tough race and he would call me and ask for help, we'd go help him. And some great stories. One time we were handing out newspapers at the football games. Every town in the county, we had people there handing out our newspapers. And it was before the game, so you'd look up in the bleachers, and there was hundreds of people with a newspaper open, right? And there was Glenn Bud Smith or whoever it was handing out cards. So every time he got in trouble, we went and helped him. And I watched him over the years, and occasionally would ask him, "Hey, take a look at this bill, and this needs killed." All right. But John's always done the right thing. He's never been in any kind of a scandal. He's always been a hardcore Republican principle kind of guy. He doesn't hate Muslims. What he hates is terrorism, because his butt was over there kicking in doors and being shot at. He wants to wipe out terrorism, and he believes that the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE and all the other organizations that are, there's dozens of them. He believes they shouldn't be allowed to operate in the United States, and that's what he's all about. He does not hate Muslims.
Al, we got just a couple of minutes before we get you out of here. Tell us about Saturday. Big stuff going on Saturday. Everybody needs to show up, yes?
Boy, we got the two big Tulsa and Oklahoma City conventions, I guess, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
a few others.
Tell everybody where to be and how to do it.
Well, man, you can go over to that blog spot, and what is it, Center Politics?
Al, you're actually on the front page of SoonerPolitics.org, along with about 20 other bloggers. So it's
okay.
on there too.
Well, go there to Center.
Shameless plug.
Job.
And you'll see all the information on that. By the way, in Oklahoma County, we got a guy named Ken Warner that's running that is just fantastic Trump supporter. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of people running for vice chair there, and boy, it's kind of hard. One lady by the name of Gayleen, and she has got a lot of supporters and everything. Yeah. And I got an email from a guy today that, boy, he sounded really good, but I don't know anything about him. But I think we got two good candidates at that point. And you know what? I love it whenever there's nothing you can throw at these people. That's the kind of people we need to step up and lead. Yeah. It's that simple.
Yeah. I've heard nothing but good things about Ken Warner, particularly. And I know Gayleen, she's volunteered for so many things. Again, she's one of those people that wasn't in it for what buck she can get out of it. So,
good.
But I want to say something.
Well, like you said earlier, Al, I mean, typically it's the people that want the office are typically not the people you want for the office. People that are recruited and begged to do it, those are the people you want. When they say, "I really didn't want to," that's the guy you want.
Ed Brown, former governor, Jerry Brown's dad of California, he said, people don't seek the office seeks the individual, right? And he says, however, there are a lot of people that want to help the office to seek them.
There you go.
Well, we're sitting here looking at David Vann, and the idea of running him for office came out of Wagner County, to tell you the truth. Yeah. And it was from the Sandy Hodges camp. I won't say Sandy Hodges herself, but he was brought up, and everybody thought it was a wonderful idea. David was shocked whenever he was asked to run for office. And that's the kind of people we need, the kind of people that were willing to serve. And I don't think he was that happy. He probably didn't think that I was his friend after asking him, are you going to take this challenge?
Al, I got to tell you something. I haven't told you this. I haven't reported. I got a call today from Dave Spalding.
Okay.
Very respected chairman down there in Cleveland County. And he said, "Man, I'm sorry. I know it's been 2 weeks. I haven't called you back. I got to call you back." He says, "Listen, I heard you're running. Don't worry. I'm supporting you." Right. And he said, "That's what you called, right? You called because you wanted me to support you." I said, "No, I was calling to try to get you to run, because I know Spalding enough and know Bennett enough that those two guys would have each other's back." Okay. Spalding
was mentioned as well, but the consensus was that David Van had the skills that we needed.
Well, and I had to tell you, when I told Spalding this, I said, when I couldn't get a hold of you, and by the way, he's studying to be a lawyer, and so's his wife, and both of them are in school and raising a family at the same time. But
Right.
Spalding, I told him, I said, look, when I couldn't get a hold of you, I called Steve Bias, very respected elder statesman of the party. And I said, do you think Spalding would do it? He said, no. He says he doesn't have time. And once I realized there was no talking him into it, I told, Bias about it, and I said, well, I'm just going to have to go. I've tried. But there were a few people. Now, because you mentioned Sandy Hodges, Sandy's somebody who's been a mentor to me since back in the early 90s. Sandy was part of Eagle Forum back when Phyllis Schlafly was involved. It was under Joanne Johnson, who is Jim Inhofe's sister, Bunny Chambers, Carolyn McClarty, all those people. And I feel like those are some of the solid conservative voices that anybody running for office has got to be somebody that they're okay with.
Hey, I want to thank Al Gerhart, our fine guest here. We're going to see if we can have him back again sometime soon. I appreciate all those bombs you threw. As always, makes for an exciting show. We're going to beam you out. Al, thanks for being here.
Let her fire back.
I'm beaming you out. Al, thanks for being on the show. We'll have you back again sometime. There he goes. Oh, that was exciting. See how I did that, Van? See how I beamed him out? And guess what? Here comes the amazing opening. That's right. We're into the 90-minute mark now, gentlemen. We had an hour and a half, and we're going to finish it off with the COVID update and any damn else thing we want to talk about. Once again, the American Constitutional Republic Affairs Estate in Oklahoma. The beliefs, principles, opinions, and views of people just like you. This is 3D Politics with your fine host, Tommy McKay, David Van from Sooner Politics, and, of course, David Oldham from ConstitutionalGrounds.com. We bring it to you fresh and live every Monday night right here on Facebook Live. And, of course, you can catch all of the stuff that we present at 3dpoliticslive.com. So Al Gerhart never fails to impress with some sort of excitement. I had no idea we were going to get into the Rhonda Vilmont story. I knew we were going to get into the Dylan Goforth story. But no, we've moved on. We've moved on since then. But anyway, so the COVID-19 update. Tell us what we know in the state. David Van.
All right. For several weeks now, we've been doing weekly updates. Several of them have been reposted by the governor. Some of them he just flat out shared my article. I appreciate that, Governor, and I appreciate anything I can do that's going to help move the story, especially where the commercial media, who gets paid to do this, is ignoring it. And so we talked about the fact that we've got one of the best survival rates in the nation. Last I checked, we were number 3. We're talking about that we are on the downside. And I mean, the numbers are dropping like a brick. Today, they announced that for everybody tested, there's probably 5 people who are carrying some level of antibodies because they've been exposed to some degree. But here's the thing I want to talk about. And I hit this straight on this time. Is men have a 50% higher fatality rate than women do. And whenever it's women and minorities that are facing something at even the slightest extra amount, you hear about it, right? Women and minorities hardest hit. But this one is hitting white men harder than any. And so, I thought, well, we've got to post this. Oldham, did you see what I've been talking about on that?
I haven't paid attention to the news today, so I've missed most of that.
What do? Work for a living?
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
And I avoid everything COVID.
Yeah.
I'm beyond that. So I couldn't care less about the numbers. Sorry. But that's
right. But here's the other thing, and this is a buried headline for me. So I looked at, when people talk about men and women, you would think biological sex, right? No, the health department hasn't been keeping records based on sexual data.
That's because you're into a passe gender construct.
Yeah. They ask them, what's your gender? They're more concerned with their social adjustment than the biology.
Oh man.
No,
So-
I made a comment on some post the other day about personal pronouns, and personal pronouns are like your nickname. You don't get to pick it yourself. You can't say I'm a he and a
Oh no! Oh, I
picked
read
your
I
name.
read an email from Lori Dector Wright, and she has in her signature pronouns colon and she, her, hers, and stuff like that. So she's identified, and it's in her whole list of
Right.
which is what I'm saying. And then we're interrupting you, Van.
That's fine.
This is the fallacy with the idea that I pick my own pronouns.
Yeah.
The fact is, you don't pick your own pronouns. Your community does, just like a nickname.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
don't say everybody calls me Gunner. No, they either call you Gunner, or they don't, and typically they don't.
Okay, but now what I want to say here,
Hey,
this
Vic.
is important, and we got to get people up to speed on this.
Okay, let's do it.
Because everybody thinks, well, gender, sex, it's all the same thing. Oh, quite contraire. So I went to the official authority, Google, right? And I typed in gender space deaf. And they gave me a definition of gender.
Saved a lot of time there.
Here it is. Either of the two sexes, male and female, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological ones. So Google
And
says,
they have redefined it.
right.
Yeah.
And you know how Google wants to control how everybody speaks and
Right.
what speech is allowed here. But I checked with several others. Now, some people are kind of wishy-washy. Oxford's wishy-washy. Webster's wishy-washy. They kind of want to play it both ways. But Google just said, oh, no. Gender refers to your social adjustment, not your biological data. So what I'm
Sex
saying
is sex your biological data then?
yes, sex is a biological marker. Gender is a cultural and social marker.
I'm not a racist, but I am a sexist. And the reason is I don't believe there's a difference in the races, but I believe there's a vast difference between the sexes.
Yeah.
But are you a genderist?
Are you familiar with the part of the body that's named vas deferens? Oh, I don't guess you are.
Actually, I am, but that's a different.
Oh, well, now you are that I just tuned you in. I use that.
No. I was trying to keep it clean.
You know,
Yeah.
in my 10th grade health class, they used English languages, except when talking about genitals, we had to go Latin just to be a little.
Well, that's correct.
Genitals?
Genical, that's Latin. He's correct, Oldham. He was there when they wrote Latin. And it says it's the ductus deferens is the carrying away duct.
I'm telling you,
Sorry.
you talk political correctness.
Excuse me, it's the part of the male reproductive system. Okay? The vas deferens is the difference between men and women.
Yeah.
Literally.
If any of my old classmates from central Minnesota graduated with me, they were in it. It was a tough class because, Valerie Boatwright, the health class teacher, was probably the best looking teacher that ever went to that school and taught, right? But she laid down the law of what language is going to be allowed. And she just defined the terms. And what does Pat Campbell says? He who defines the terms controls the debate, right?
He says stuff too.
That's important when you've got a bunch of 10th grade boys with raging hormones in the class. Okay.
That's true.
And this was a co-ed class too. So I tell you what, there were people who were pretty quiet and shy. And as a dad now, I appreciate them being a little bit bashful about discussing the sex. And
the thing is, back to the genders and such, and I've directly asked Deborah Gist how many sexes or genders that they're going to recognize, so I know how many bathrooms I'm going to pay for. Never a response. But they just pick and choose when they're going to be accurate in their scientific terms or not.
Yeah.
Now, they
Well,
remember just a few years ago, there were no absolute truths. I couldn't say, anything that was reality based because like, well, that's your truth and there's really no absolute truth. But today it's those same people, man, there's an absolute truth.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, it's absolutely true that there is no absolute truth.
well, yeah, that's the old one. Yes, sir.
But here's my concern, guys. Remember, Governor Stitt said all of our decisions will be data driven, which is true of all of my opinions on 3D politics, by the way. Data driven. But what kind of data? Is it really going to be biology and studying how a virus in life science attacks the human body? Because what good is the cultural acceptance of your gender as much as what is your biological sex? Do you have XY chromosomes? Hello.
Well, the data that is derived does not give you context. Speaking of missing context, the data you derive doesn't give you context of what's on the ground. Just like in buying, selling diamonds, we've all heard of the 4 C's. Okay, this is my industry. You got clarity and the carat weight and the color, okay, and the cut. And so what is that you can look at a piece of paper that defines the diamond and it can say it's a G color and a carat 25 and it can tell you all the beautiful attributes. And when you open the paper and look at it, it can be ugly as hell. For people who don't know diamonds, let's say I want you to date a girl and she's 5'10", 125 pounds. She got blonde hair and blue eyes. Well, that sounds really good till you look at her, because the data doesn't tell you anything about the reality on the ground.
Yeah. So
anybody, I dare you. I dare you.
Quiet.
Say something, Oldham. I dare you.
I was going to say they didn't describe the freight train that ran over their face. So.
Just saying, man.
Yeah.
You can do the data any way you want.
Yeah, but this is the point I'm getting at here. It just was today when I realized, no, they weren't telling me were these biological men and women.
Well, have you verified with them what they mean by it? Because they may mean, the traditional gender meaning.
Either that tells me they shouldn't have a master's degree in public health, which most of these people that have these decision-making levels have master's degrees from OU's School of Public Health. I've actually been in there. I've actually been a lecturer at the Schusterman campus. I know where these people come from who make these decisions. Okay. This is something.
No. What I was asking was, when they say gender, do they mean the Google definition of gender, or do they mean the traditional sex definition of gender?
Oh, that's what Van is saying.
I don't know the answer. What is the answer to that question?
They're going, right. Correct me if I'm wrong. What you're saying, Van, is that they're going by the fluid definition of whatever I choose as my gender, not by the biological vast.
Well, and then the question becomes, how do we know that? Did they say it?
In my 10th grade grammar class with Norma Nelson, who taught old school, we were taught the difference between sex and gender. And I didn't even need to have a high school diploma to know that. And
what's the difference? What were you taught is the difference?
Just exactly what this is. Gender refers to their social identification. Sex is the biological marker.
You were taught that?
Yes.
40-some years ago?
Yes.
Yeah, and here's Norma. She says,
I was never taught that.
Norma says, thanks for the shout out.
Yeah.
They were synonyms, gender and sex.
Yeah.
They're synonyms.
No,
That's
in
what
high
I was
school.
taught.
Yeah, in high school I was taught that there's.
Yeah, but you came from Minnesota.
Yeah, they pride themselves in being a top education state, except they use the California. Except they use the California aptitude standards for whether or not it was the 1962 California test that we always had to take.
Okay. Well,
I've been watching a lot of the History Channel lately with the ancient alien astronaut.
Oh, that history. the real history about
And
aliens.
what I have found
There we
out,
go.
the ultimate yes man is an ancient alien astronaut theorist, because no matter what, they say, is it possible? Insert anything. Ancient alien
I know.
theorists say yes. There's literally nothing that they like. Is anything possible? Ancient alien theorists say yes.
Yes, I know.
They never say no.
No, exactly. They use
Is
the
it possible? No,
question,
not this time.
the suggestive question. You don't
God.
watch a science fiction documentary without it being a bunch of questions. But did he really? But did
Hey,
this really
so
happen?
here's the other
Could
thing.
it be?
My buddy out on the farm called me and he said, I'm paraphrasing, Abraham Lincoln, when attempting to keep the Union together, made Trump look like a real pussy. I mean, let's just put it this way. Look, and I have to agree with him. Trump, you're listening to Tommy McKay, and that's why you're offended. The verbal Viking, not afraid to use words any way he wants. Plundering the conversation right here on 3D Politics every Monday with David Van and David Oldham. What I'm saying is that when the Union was threatened at splitting, and we've all heard the comments that this is just like the Civil War. We're split in half. Half the country this, half the country that. When that was that way with Abraham Lincoln, he came in and kicked the crap out of the court. He kicked the crap out of habeas corpus. He arrested people and threw them in jail. Journalists like Dylan Goforth. He pitched that little puke in jail. And he went around and kicked the crap out of everybody and kept the Union together. Trump came in and said, I sure hope Mike Pence does the right thing. It's like,
Oh God.
damn it, man. If
Hey,
you're going to
Tom.
do it, do it. Don't sit there and ask Pence to
Okay.
do the right thing.
But Tom,
Damn
if
it.
we're asking question, could it be that Rhonda Villamont Smith and Darren Gantz are both communist plants in the GOP?
Ancient alien theorists say yes.
Certainly possible.
You've never seen them both in the same place at the same
I
time.
never said they were.
Lie by omission.
Yeah.
Got you again.
Ah.
I got one more thing, but anything else before we got out of here?
I want to say, and I need to reiterate this,
All right.
it's just sad when we start tearing down each other. That's not my style. You tell me why I should support you, not why I should avoid your opponent. You know,
We've
I
got a
just-
platform here, and we like to invite guests, and we like to have them come on to say what they feel like they think is important. And I have my own beef, clearly, with Dylan Goforth.
Yeah.
And I said my piece. And I like giving Al a chance to come out here. And nobody's perfect. And I think it's better to discuss these differences between Al and Rhonda and me and Dylan and you two guys and everybody else than it is to just sit there and let them roll downhill.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, Dylan, yeah, he and I butted heads. I mean, he made a statement that absolutely it's a moral obligation to punch a Nazi. And I said, yeah, but then you just get to define who's a Nazi by whatever's convenient to your political ends.
Well, that's quite amazing to me because I never heard that quote from Dylan Goforth.
Yeah, he and I had a
Yeah,
discussion.
but I mean, here it is. This is him justifying violence from the state.
Yeah, and listen,
Literally violence from the state.
I've actually been able to somewhat work with Dylan, but I know we're too far away to really do anything. But journalistically, now one of his associates, Cliff Adcock, solid guy. I don't know what his politics are, and that's a good thing in a journalist.
Oh yeah.
Because and he's interviewed me. We worked together on some mental health research stories to advance the cause, and it was advocacy. But yeah, so I'm going to look for places where I can work with people.
Well, in the future, I'm going to be hammering the Frontier for being a nonprofit, just like I'm going to hammer everybody for being a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Okay, including the church. They don't get it either because we're not in a time of prosperity and out of debt. And that's
Tom,
nonprofit.
We're not making a profit either. What we're
Hell
doing.
no, we're not. My wife would call me nonprofit, so she didn't sure as hell didn't marry me for my money. It's the good looks.
But does that make us a non-profit?
No, I get a good
If
night.
we're not making a profit, that's pretty non-profit. Now, are we exploiting the tax code? That's what Tom.
Boom! There's the question from.
That's
That's
the real
it.
issue.
That's it.
Before we get out of here, anybody else? Because I got one more thing.
Well, yeah, I got one more dig, Tom. At least you and I are here
Going.
in Tulsa. At least you and I are here in Tulsa. We didn't marry some rich woman in Broken Arrow.
Yeah,
Just to bring their
maskless.
veil
I'm
out.
learning to love the maskless love. People who are maskless, when I see them in church, I'm just starting to love them. You know,
I appreciate you guys a lot. And David, I had heard, your wife is running, and you know how highly I think of both of you two.
Right.
So, hey, can we get her on to talk about her candidacy?
Well, it's going to be
tonight. Not tonight.
Yeah, but it'll be over this Saturday.
It'll be over on Saturday.
Now, here's the cool thing, folks. We've never done this before in Tulsa. If you're a registered Republican voter of Tulsa County, you get to go to both your precinct and county meeting all in one day, and you could even be appointed to be a delegate to the state convention all in one day. What a deal. America, what a country. Yeah. So
the vagaries.
Yeah, so this is a cool thing. And then you folks over in Oklahoma County, Tom, I did write a pretty good article today. I want to say something about slates, because there are slates out there.
Okay.
Slates are something we've always had, okay, from time to time. A slate is whenever you have a big insurgency of new people in the party. This happened with the religious right back when Pat Robertson ran for president in '88 in the Reagan Revolution. Then you had that Tea Party, big bunch coming in. And it always came before we were setting up for a big change in the political process. Okay, the contract with America, the Tea Party revival and all that.
Right.
But when you got all these new people, and they really don't know all these people because they haven't had as much history, but yet their vote counts just as much as anyone else in the party organization. So Joanne Johnson used to put together slates, and I worked with her on it, and they're effective. But they're only secondary to the preferred way of you get to know every candidate, study every candidate. And I'm telling people who are going to the conventions for the first time, study the candidates. The slates are there as a backup, okay? If you have to use a backup, fine. But I know I won't follow either of the slates that I've seen so far, because I know people from both slates that I think have the merit to earn my vote.
That's it. So again, I'm here to learn. You're saying a slate is
it's a list of here's the endorsed candidates of our little sectarian group.
Okay.
In another group.
That kind of condenses the information. It's a hub of information to find out who all's there.
Yeah.
Because a group is coming in that's so large, nobody knows who everybody is yet.
A Tea Party, well, I'll say this. The state senator was part of that religious right that came in. He made the complaint one time of the old guard Republican Party, Tulsa County. He said, they have the attitude that the county starts at Utica Square and ends at I-44.
Okay.
Because that's all that they could get in office.
The echo chamber they had built. Yeah.
Right. But we were expanding into Broken Arrow and into Jinx, South Tulsa, Owasso.
That makes sense, because this was as those communities were growing.
Right. And those people want a voice in organizing our party resources and where we think that there is a seat that we can be viable in.
Right.
And so it's important that you have leadership with the big picture in mind. And you've just got to have that. So
because the idea of gathering together in a party is to assimilate like minds, and this is how you find out like minds.
Have as big a group as you can get that can work together, and you just have to sometimes look beyond things. The day I met Al Gerhart, that was on our show earlier, I met him. I said, Al, you and I got something in common. 2012. I ran the Santorum, Oklahoma campaign for president. You ran Ron Paul's campaign. And I said, I'll tell you right now, Al, you'll run circles around me tactically and strategically. But I said, they put me in charge because I could get people to work together. And that's what I'm about. And that's what I'm begging the parties to be about.
So here, this was back, and this again, I'm calling back to the conversation we just had with Al in the same area of putting a team together. And this is what I'm saying. So I'm saying we cannot all be diplomats, or we'll always lose every argument. you have to have a guy that is sometimes hard, like Al, to say, I don't like you for a reason. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
important to be able to have these harsh comments from the bomb throwers and then have the thing made up and we kiss and make up with the diplomats.
You just can't have the bloodbath so bad that it'll take years to get back to working together. We just can't have that. Right. We've got to work together here. We are 95% allies, maybe 5%, according to conjecture, that might separate us. But what I'm concerned about is that it's personal ambition sometimes being the only cause of some of this party infighting.
Well, right. I mean, there's personal.
And I'm not naming names here.
No,
so
but
if you think I'm referring to you, I'm not.
And let's understand, there's only one slate that has decided to put a group together to try to get a group organized, a group elected. There's only one slate that.
Well, you've seen one, and I've seen the same one you're referring to, but I've seen others.
Well, there's others.
It's in private emails, nothing published yet.
Oh well, there's nothing official. And so just make up your mind on for each position based on the best person for the position, not because they're in a slate.
Yeah, I know you stepped away. Were you still listening?
I was listening the entire time.
Good. Okay, good. I want to be sure that you understand.
The point is that there are going to be people who you may want from the slate. There are going to be people who are better outside of the slate.
Exactly.
Because there are people in the slate.
Yeah.
I've never met. Who are these people? I've never seen them around.
Right.
I don't know. But that doesn't negate them. But who are they?
And to bastardize Tom's statement, the slate chooses you. You don't choose the slate.
Well, and
it's
the
fits.
Thing is, but then you step up, and we've seen this. I mean, Mike Ford put together the last slate, and half of the people, most of the people, ended up just dropping off the face of the earth. And we've never seen them. They never finished out their terms, and we've never seen them since.
Right.
So beware. Go for the people who are actually doing the work already, and are really producing the things that we need produced. If there are new people, fabulous. We need them in. Is it their time to be representing all of us? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what Saturday's going to be about.
Look, I'll be honest with you. I've been in the Tulsa Republican Party for 4 decades now.
Right.
And I'm telling you, the day I thought that, my choices would be between the 2 current candidates for chair, I would have thought I'd died, gone to heaven compared to what I had to deal with 30, 40 years ago.
Yes. We have two good candidates right now for chair of Tulsa County. I mean, that's a good thing. That's not, one's evil and one's halfway okay.
Yeah.
Which is what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so I'm just telling you the history of the party, what happened in 90, 91, well, actually in 89, Mike Ritz and Dick Freeman put together a slate, and for the first time, the religious right took over the county party, and you thought we had nuclear war. I mean, it was hell for the next couple of years. And then what happened? Terry Simonson came around, and everybody said, okay, he's a consensus candidate. Why? Because Terry could work with everyone.
Right.
And I ran Buchanan's campaign in 92 and 96. Was Simonson a Buchanan supporter? No. But did he treat us fairly? Yes.
Oh, right.
Simonson was the only one we've had in the GOP in these 40 years who served more than 1 term. That tells you that we've been just destroying our own, and they can't wait to get out after 2 years.
What I see here, and I believe, is that we need there has to be a balance between look, Trump can't work with everybody, and George Bush could. Now, which one do you want for president? I mean, it's like, you're going to have somebody who throws a punch. You can't always be working with people.
Yeah.
At some point, you got to say, you're full of crap, and here's how it works. This is Al Gerhart, and I'm disagree with him 100% on Rhonda. I mean,
You
I
can't
agree
sell
with
your
it, but I will
soul.
tell you this. The only way we're going to win is if we've got bomb throwers and diplomats on the same team.
That's right.
You can't sell your soul. There's no doubt about it. And there's some politicians I conjecture never had a soul beyond getting themselves elected because they reinvent themselves.
Right.
I mean, Mitt Romney, hello, I'm going to name a name, right?
Well, Jim Lankford looks good in a dress. Are you kidding me? Here's a guy that stands up and says, "Oh, I'm going to do a thing." And it's like, boom. Oh no. Hey, quick, everybody into the girls' closet. I mean, this guy, he's worse than Dylan Goforth is James Langford. Okay. All right. Here we are once again. Gentlemen, I think I'm going to lead us out unless you got more to do. I got one more thing to get us out.
That was a perfect ending.
We're almost out here. I want to do something.
We wrapped it up this way.
Last week, as we all know, Rush Limbaugh passed away, and I want to do a thing that I want to bring to our show on a regular basis, and that is what I call the Rushtrospective. And if you go to the Rush Limbaugh site, you'll see that it has archives, and this is from the earliest archive I could find. He on August 3rd, 2000, which is when he published the piece. Not when it was written, but this is George Bush, W. Bush's administrative. This was George Bush's acceptance speech. Okay. And so let me see if I can make this adjustment here. George Bush said, "This administration," talking about the Clinton administration. This is George Bush's acceptance speech from the Rush Limbaugh archive. George Bush speaking. "This administration had its moment," talking about Clinton Gore. "They had their chance, Clinton Gore. They have not led Clinton Gore. We will," says George Bush. "This generation was given the gift of the best education in American history." Questionable, I say. "Yet we do not share that gift with everyone. 7 of 10. This is back in 2000, George Bush. 7 of 10 fourth graders in our highest poverty schools cannot read a simple children's book. Tell me that the public school education, federally funded, has not failed us all." Continuing to finish up here, and still this administration continues talking about Clinton Gore on the same old path with the same old programs. Sounds like Deborah Gist to me. "While millions are trapped in schools where violence is common and learning is rare, this administration," says George Bush, "has had its chance," talking about Clinton Gore, "has had their chance. They have not led. We will." That was all the way back in 2000. That's the Rushtrospective. I intend to bring kind of a This Week on Rush every week to talk about something that we spoke about in the past. That's 20 some odd years ago, where Clinton Gore was screwing it up, and George Bush said he was going to fix the public education system. Well, guess what? It's still screwed. Look at Deborah Gist and the Joy Hoffmeister begging surveys out of children and parents as to what to teach them on distance learning. It's pathetic. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been, once again, 3D Politics with David Van and David Oldham. We'll see you guys next week once again for a rousing show. Hopefully we can get another fine, exciting guest to join us. But here we go. We're going to take everybody out. We're going to beam them out one at a time. There goes David Oldham. Woo! David Oldham. There goes David Van.
Our phone's ringing already.
There he goes. I can't make you leave because you're a co-ghost.
I'll work on it.
There he goes. Hey, we'll see you guys next time. 3dpoliticslive.com.